It's not just a problem, it's a crisis.
Opioid abuse continues its strong grip on communities, destroying families across Tennessee.
If you think you know who it affects, think again. It can be your teacher, police officer, or even your pastor.
More people died of overdoses in the state last year than ever before, and nearly 1,300 of the overdoses in 2017 were linked to opioids.
It's now a topic for candidates running for office, but despite political feuds, there's still the never-ending battle to stop it. Here's Matthew Torres.
But you're so absorbed in the pain that the other person is going through that your entire day is just done for.
It knows no gender.
Like when you are in recovery, your family's in recovery.
No race.
But the healing is possible in time.
And no socioeconomic status.
Caring, concern, and love.
In the walls of this room,
You do look a bit frustrated, and I can definitely see how the situation can cause you to think the way you think.
there's no such thing as boundaries.
I was a dead woman walking.
Addiction judges no one.
I was a functioning addict, very well. I ran a business. I was a successful businesswoman, sales manager. As my addiction got worse, my business went under within 2 years.
Andrea Kirchner is at the intersection of her life where desperation and hope meet.
Will I get my family back? I hope. But I have to show them I am serious this time. And I am, because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
The past 4 years of opioid abuse have driven her to a wall.
To be brutally honest, I sold my kids' things to get it. I stole from my family for money to get it. You will do next to anything.
Smashing what she's always known into pieces. Overdosing was her wake-up call.
My daughter watched, and my friend told her not to call 911. And how I woke up was grace of God. And I'm sitting here, my 10-year-old daughter's looking me in my eye.
It was pills that caused her life to take a turn for the worse.
Percocet, Vicodin, they got too expensive. I was introduced to heroin. I loved it.
Started going to my doctor and telling him I was in pain. And I recall he prescribed me Percocet and other oxycodones.
For Althea Miles, Percocet prescribed after a surgery led her down a dangerous path. Her problem grew for nearly a decade, even though she knew there was an issue.
I can recall going back to him, telling him that I had a problem, and I'm thinking I'm having a problem, and he was like, no, you know, and he proceeded to give me extra scripts.
Pinpointing the exact cause of the problem can spark debate. Many would say it was because of overprescribing painkillers. Nowadays, others would argue not so much. In reality, the number of prescriptions across the country has dramatically gone down in recent years than how it was before.
Things absolutely snowballed.
Cumberland Heights Chief Medical Officer Dr. Chapman Sledge says it began when standards changed in the late 90s and early 2000s. Pain was considered a fifth vital sign. Advocates pushed for doctors to use opioids such as OxyContin, while pharmaceutical companies claimed the drugs were less addictive and less harmful.
In the early 80s, mid 80s, you would never dream of using opioids to treat chronic non-malignant pain. And the medical profession was sold a bill of goods that, you know, we've got this epidemic of undertreated pain, and prescriptions skyrocketed after 2001.
By 2015, the Centers for Disease Control reported there were enough opioids to treat every American around the clock for 3 weeks. Earlier this year, Tennessee filed a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, the manufacturer of OxyContin, for fueling the opioid crisis. It accuses the company of valuing profit over people with knowledge of the drug's addictive risks. Since then, the state's largest insurance provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, announced it will no longer cover OxyContin, but instead provide medication that's harder to abuse.
We've known that opioids have some addictive potential. I don't think anybody realized how badly it would get out of hand.
Doctors like Nashville plastic surgeon Mary Jane Graff says medical professionals are aware of their role in the crisis.
We all feel some responsibility for the opioid crisis, and we're all trying very hard to do everything we can to decrease the amount of opioids that we are prescribing.
Cutting back on prescriptions is one piece of the state's extensive mission to combat the crisis. Tennessee Together is a $30 million plan focused on prevention, law enforcement, and treatment. As of July, doctors can only prescribe opiates for up to 3 days. But depending on the patient's condition, they can also prescribe for up to 10 or 20 days. But that means requiring more documentation and more evaluation. With restrictions in place, doctors are also instructed to give alternative treatment options. Hospice care or major physical trauma patients are among those exempt.
The laws that have come down from the state have actually helped solidify a lot of the work that we've done already.
For hospitals like St. Thomas Midtown, doctors have already been offering drug combinations that do not require opiates. There is a national database to determine if a patient is doctor shopping by looking up the number of opiate prescriptions by how many different providers. But it keeps doctors accountable too.
Oftentimes, if you can just talk to them and say, it appears that you're prescribing opiates more frequently than your peers, they can self-modify most of the time.
I played a part, I have to accept that. I played a part, at one point I didn't know better, but, if somebody keeps giving you something and you go to them for advice, you kind of think in your mind it may be okay. And then I did have true pain, so.
Opioids may have consumed them, but now they're turning their lives around.
But I do understand absolutely where you come from.
Addiction knows no boundaries, but recovery sees no limits.
I'm not rushing home to anybody. There's nobody to rush home to. There's nobody that I'm trying to do this for. I'm doing it for me. Finally, I'm doing it for me.